Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Today we are in our series of talking about sexuality, and today we're talking about consequences, whether or not we can have positive or negative consequences, and then what are the actions associated with it. So today's agenda is we'll talk about welcome and guidelines. We'll go through and we'll do a warm-up activity. We'll talk about definitions. Then we'll move into our actual activity where we talk about decisions and consequences, and then we'll do our closing for today. In previous sessions, we have talked about and set up guidelines. So a quick review of those is we're going to raise our hand. If we have a question, one person at a time, we're listening, we're not talking over each other. No question is too dumb. I'll ask all questions. We're going to use proper language when we can, and if we need to change slang language and do proper, then we will go through that. And we also have honesty and respect as well when we are talking in this group. Any questions about that? No? All right. So the first thing we're going to do then is to do our warm-up. So on your paper that's in front of you right now, what I need for you to do is, according to you, your own personal definition, what do you think it means if I say sexual intercourse? What is your definition of sexual intercourse? Go ahead and write that down on a piece of paper.
One word answers or all
No,
one?
whatever your answer is. What, according to you, how would you define sexual intercourse? Okay, so sexual intercourse, we have 4 people at this training today. We might have 4 different definitions of it, okay? So, definitions. All right, so who would like to say what their definition is?
Making love.
Okay. Next.
I put pleasure.
All right. Next. What do you think? Not making love? Okay, so we got that twice. All right. Anybody else?
That's it. Same.
Same thing, or you're not quite sure? It's okay to not be sure, right? So I'm going to put a big question mark, okay? Because what do these definitions mean? What does pleasure mean when we're talking about sexual intercourse? How would we define pleasure?
Senses.
Okay. So we're talking about the senses. So touch, smell, hear, eyes, taste. All right. What else? What does making love mean?
Expressing yourself.
Expressing yourself.
With your partner.
With a partner, okay, person at the time, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, all right? But are there actual activities involved with sexual intercourse? What do you think?
Preparation to get in there.
Foreplay? All right. And getting there would mean what?
Again, kissing, touching.
All right, so this is kissing and touching.
Dancing, eating, cooking.
All right. So again, all going back to the pleasure and the foreplay of getting to, what would we say actual intercourse is? What's the definition that we would say for making love? The interaction of what body parts? And the crickets occur. All right. So the definition that I'm looking for is vagina, penis, contact. All right, so that's what we're talking about from this. Now, when we're talking about making love or using our pleasure or foreplay to get to all of this, what can be the consequences? And don't answer this yet. But are there consequences, I guess is the way to put that, to all of these decisions? When you're engaged in foreplay, when you're engaged in pleasure, when you're engaged in intercourse is our definition of vaginal penis insertion, okay? So what I want for you to do now is on your papers, fold them hot dog style. So you're going to take your paper, fold it just like this, take it long ways and fold it in half. It's hot dog style.
Say half, lengthwise?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And on the side where we had our definition of sexual intercourse, underneath that I want you to write the definition, or what is your definition of the word consequence? What does the word consequence mean? Alright, so what do you think that the word consequence means? Okay, about 30 more seconds. Okay, about 10.
That's a nice little consequence.
Alright, what did you guys put down for your definitions of consequence?
I put a right or wrong action.
Okay. Alright, right or wrong action. Okay.
I put STD, hurt feelings, pregnancy,
Oh, you put it on
sadness, guilt.
Okay, so you put the consequence to engaging in intercourse. Alright, keep that list for a few minutes from now. Okay. Do you have a definition of just the word consequence? Nothing?
Something happens after an event.
Okay, something
Something
happens
good or
after.
bad.
What, huh?
Something good or bad happens after an event.
Okay, something good or bad after event. Alright, perfect. George?
Not always a good outcome.
Not always a good outcome. Alright. Alright, so in these definitions of consequence, in two of them we have something that says right or wrong or good or bad. Alright, so we're making a distinction between a positive definition of consequence and a negative definition of consequence. Alright, and then we have not always a good outcome. Okay, that would go on the negative side of the definition of consequence. Then at the end of our definitions we have the word action and we have the word event. So that means something has to occur for there to be something positive or negative that happens after it, all right? So a cause and effect. An event happens, and then the positive or negative consequence after it. Trent, if you stay in school and you do your homework, what's the consequence of doing that?
Good grades.
Good grades. Perfect, all right? Dad, if you go to work every day, what's the consequence of that?
Job well done. Money.
Job well
paycheck.
done, money, paycheck, pay the house, all right? No, I shouldn't. Mom, if you don't get up and go to work every day, what's going to happen?
Oh, you might have a clean house.
No, if you don't get up.
Oh, if I really had a job,
Yeah.
I would get up and go.
Yeah.
Well, then I wouldn't be making any money. I wouldn't be having a good reputation.
No good reputation,
May
no
not
good
have a
money,
job.
out of a job, all right? So there's some negative consequences to it, all right? George, if you don't go to school, what are the consequences of that?
Truancy.
Truancy, which means what?
Skipping school.
All right, skipping school, but what's the consequence of skipping school?
No education.
No education, which could lead to then what?
Delinquency.
Delinquency, all right, which means what?
Oh my god.
If you don't go to school, you don't get smart. You don't get smart, you don't have a good job. Don't have a good job, might not have a good life.
All right, so if you don't go to school, the consequence could be that your job and life could have some different outcomes to it. So we're looking at that part of it. So now we know we have two working definitions of what we're going to do for sexual intercourse and for consequences. Now flip your paper over. You've already done it hot dog style. And what I need for you to do on one side of your paper, all right, when you engage, or no, what two choices do you have when it comes to sexual intercourse? You can do what? Two things.
Either have it or not.
Either have it or not. Perfect, all right? So on your paper, now that you folded it hot dog style, on the top, what would we say if you're having it? What's a terminology that we could use? You're doing what with sexual intercourse? Instead of just saying having it. Could we use the word engage? You're engaging in sexual activity. All right. So at the top on the left-hand side, I want you to put engaging.
What do we do on the other side?
Just flip your paper over all the way. There you go. And put engaging at the top. And then what is the word that we call it when we're not engaging in sexual activity? What's the very popular term begins with an A? Abstaining. Perfect. So on the other side of your paper, I want you to write abstaining.
I don't know that word.
Okay. Underneath it, what I want you to do is if you choose to engage in sexual activity, what are all the consequences that come with it? Positive and negative. Right? If you choose to abstain from sexual activity, what are all the positive and negative consequences that come from that? Okay, a few minutes to write out those definitions and consequences.
I was conversing, I was listening.
That's what it is.
So you're asking the question, if you abstain from sex, what happens?
What are the consequences of it? Positive and negative. All right? And then if you engage, what are the consequences, positive and negative?
Well, I'm an atrocious spiller.
It's okay, we're not worried about spelling. Just the thoughts. Okay, about one more minute. Okay, I have pencils down and people doodling, so it looks like we can move on. All right, so as a group, before we put anything up here, what are some of the answers that you guys wrote down for if you choose to engage? What are the positive and negatives of that? First, let's talk about the positives. All right, so if you choose to engage in sexual intercourse, what are the positives that come along with it?
Feeling of well-being, closeness, love.
Okay, feeling of well-being, closeness, and love. All right. Trenton, what do you think?
Pleasure.
Pleasure. Okay. Anything else on your list for positives?
You'd be close.
Alright. So well-being, we've got pleasure, we've got close. Alright.
I've got 5 minutes of ecstasy. Chances of becoming pregnant, getting the disease.
Okay, so is chances of becoming pregnant a positive or negative? Because we're talking about the positives of engaging.
It can be both.
Okay, perfect. So pregnancy can be both. So hold that thought when we get back to the negatives. Alright?
Getting the disease, or you could be known as a slut.
Okay, again, just talking about the positives. So is the disease and being known as a slut positives?
For some, it could be.
Okay, for some it could be. Alright, so if I put the word reputation up here, would that cover it then?
Yeah,
Alright,
that could go either way.
okay. So those are some of the positives of engaging in sexual intercourse. Anything else now that we've seen the list up on the board that we would want to add to it? We have well-being, pleasure, closeness, ecstasy, pregnancy, and reputation.
You're the teacher.
Well, no, I mean, we're all doing this together. All right, so we can leave this open right here if we want to add anything to it later. So what are some of the negatives then if we're choosing to engage in sexual activity? Mom already said pregnancy can go in both. Okay. And what else did you say? For negatives?
STD.
Oh, for a negative, I just put, are we talking about abstaining?
No,
or
not yet. We're still engaging.
Oh. I just put chances of becoming pregnant, getting diseases, and known as a slut.
Okay.
Reputation.
You know,
So reputation.
well, I guess that would be better.
Okay. What else? If we're choosing to engage. Trent, what do you think?
I had disease, accidental pregnancy, and breakups.
Okay. Breakups. Meaning that there was a relationship, we had sex, now we're not quite sure what's going to happen next, so, okay, perfect. Anything else that we need to add to this? Alright. Could there be a loss of money if we choose to engage in sexual activity? Because if you get someone pregnant, you as the father either have to pay, you as the mother have to pay. Children are expensive, so money. What about school? Is there any negative parts or positive parts when you're choosing to engage for school?
Yeah, it's going to come with your reputation. You're going to start showing and everything else, and kids are going to not like it and see who.
Okay, alright, so as a female then, if you're pregnant and at school, you could be made fun of from there, alright? And then, what about if you have to drop out of school because of a pregnancy, because you have to go get work to help pay for that baby? Could that be a negative, a positive, both?
Negative.
Could be a negative. Because before we've already used the example of if we drop out of school, then there's consequences that come along with it. Alright? Anything else we want to
That
add?
can be positive too.
Which ones?
If you have a child and you drop out of school, it can be a positive.
Okay, explain.
Well, you make it you make your mistake positive. You make it right.
Okay, so up in the positive then we could turn our lives around. Make a bad decision good. Alright, what were you going to add?
Or what you learn from your mistakes.
Alright, so we can put up here, you guys want to add learn from mistake. Do we want to call it a mistake or do we want to call it an event? You learn from your event. Okay, I like that. Good job. Alright, now on your list you talk about the positives and the negatives of abstaining. Alright, so what are some of the positives if a person chooses to abstain? What do you guys think?
Well, you won't get pregnant. You won't be you could be ridiculed by people.
Okay, so keep that then for the negative.
Yeah.
If you're going to be ridiculed. So what are the positives
Of abstaining,
of abstaining? Yes.
you don't get pregnant.
Okay, anything else?
Don't move too
No diseases.
Don't move too fast in a relationship to put a break.
Okay, so no disease. Okay,
Be known as a good girl.
don't move too fast for relationships. Alright, you said what? Known as a good girl? Oh, are we just talking about girls or boys or both?
Oh, well.
So does that again go back to the reputation? Alright. So reputation. Alright, what else? Anything else positive that can be gained from abstaining from sexual activity or sexual intercourse?
Go on with your life. Do what you want to do.
Okay, so independency. Okay, anything else? Anything that we talked about as far as school and money over on the engaged side? Could we add anything to the abstinence side?
Well, if you don't do any of that, you don't get in trouble and you can go to school, finish school and all the other stuff.
Alright, so school, work, I'm just going to put stay, meaning that we can still engage in school and a job without the responsibilities of a child that come along with it. Alright? What are some of the negatives if a person chooses to abstain from sexual intercourse?
What are the what?
What are some of the negatives
If you
if a
abstain?
person chooses to abstain from sexual intercourse?
You could break up, lose your partner.
Okay,
Pressure.
so break up, peer pressure.
Ridicule.
I like that word. Ridicule. Spell it right. Right? What else?
A sense of not fulfillment, however.
Okay. Alright. So again, if you're choosing to abstain, but some of the negatives, you may not feel fulfilled, you may be ridiculed, there's peer pressure, some person may break up with you because you don't want to do it.
You're not creating any relationship.
Okay. Not creating a physical relationship or any kind of a relationship.
Could be either.
Could be either.
Okay. So physical, or we'll say emotional. Okay. Anything else for this part of it? For the abstaining. Alright. So what do you think a 17-year-old male should do? Abstain, engage,
Stay.
abstain, what?
So the accidental pregnancy, the finish your schooling.
Okay, so accidental pregnancy and you can finish your schooling. What if I said a 23-year-old male? Does that make a difference?
Well, he's got a sense of life, a sense of direction. He may know what he's going through, so.
Okay, so a sense of life and a sense of direction. What if I say a 12-year-old male?
No way.
No way what?
Should they be doing it?
Why?
He doesn't know all the ramifications.
Okay, so doesn't understand the
Life hasn't
consequences
even,
of it.
lovely.
Alright, so when we talk about age, age seems to be the key difference here, right? Because I said 17 years old, then I went to 23, and then I went to 12. Alright, so depending upon age, that's really going to make a difference if we engage or abstain and what the positives and negatives are going to be, either for school, for job, consequences, even understanding what the consequences are and going on from there. Okay? Any questions about this part of it?
No. Got it.
Do you have a question though?
No.
No? Alright, so what I want you guys to do now is just in our group right here, discuss why even talk about consequences, whether positive or negative, for engaging in sexual activity. Why talk about this? Why spend time talking about this?
Awareness
For what?
of the whole process of sexual engagement.
Okay, so awareness of if we engage, what are the consequences along those lines, alright? Trenton, you're 14. Why talk about this kind of stuff when you're 14 years old?
So you know what to, so you learn and so you know what to do.
Okay, so you can learn and you can know what to do, alright? What do you think we should follow up with? If we're talking about whether or not we're engaging in activity, alright, what do you think the next conversation should be about? You don't know?
Everything that happens with it.
What about that one right there, peer pressure?
Okay.
Why do you think we would talk next about peer pressure?
Oh, because people are gonna say you should have sex, but then if you're too young, you shouldn't.
Very good. People are going to try to say, oh, you should do it. Or people are going to say, no, you shouldn't do it. All right? And when you're 14 years old, do we need to learn those skills of how do you say no? How do we say yes? How do we still try to be in a relationship in school and work? If we choose to engage, what does that mean? Do we now have to learn about STIs and birth control and everything along those lines. So again, the next conversation, our next session, we're going to take it to the next level and talk about how do we have communication skills to either engage or abstain, and then what does that mean from there, okay? Any questions about this part of it? No? All right, so today we said that we were going to do our welcoming guidelines, do our warm-up, we did our definitions, activities from there, and then we did our closing. Any questions about today?
Nope.
You guys were a very good audience. Thank you very much. See you all next week.
Thank you.
Yay, teach, yay.